All right. Here we go. February 20th. February 20th, 2025. I've been up since 3 a.m. and it's time to get going. All right, here we are at Duluth Conservative. We talk about things that are affecting us in Duluth, Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, and then national news. And we have so much to go over. This is starting to become a part-time job for me to try to figure out all the stuff that we can talk about, trying to read up about it, and then trying to do the show. But we're ready to go. Here we go. So we're going to move the health and fitness to the end per day's request, and we're going to start with the local news in Duluth. The first thing I've got is, I'll bring this up, Dave, and then you can jump in if you have any other Duluth news. There was an article today in the Duluth News Tribune that talks about that Duluth to rethink the Skyway system. And so what they're saying is, the Skyway system was built in a different age, and it's less people downtown, and is it time to close it down because we should be trying to drive people to the streets because that's where the businesses are, as opposed to going up into the Skyway. I remember the same thing when I lived in Minneapolis, the same argument coming from the Skyway system down in Minneapolis, and it sounds as insane to me now as it did in there then. I work downtown. I take the Skyway system. It's brutal downtown to walk down there in the winter, and it's not easy to get around on the streets. You've got street lights all over the place. You're standing outside in this howling wind and the freezing cold, and the Skyway is right there. It's connecting all the buildings. I don't understand the impetus for this. Have you heard of this yet, Dave? Did you hear about this before?
No, I've heard it about in the past, and it doesn't make a lot of sense because you're slowing the traffic down. They're worried about cars and emissions and climate change and all that garbage. But if you introduce people onto the streets, then you're slowing car traffic down, increasing the problems with exhaust going. Right. Keep the cars moving, keep the people in the skywalks where it's, like you said, where it's not 40 below.
Yeah. So Eric Forsman is the one apparently that's driving this. And then he came up with an idea that maybe we have to section off parts of the Skyway and only make it accessible to the key holders, because he walks downtown Skyway and there's some places that are unsafe. Further reducing it, making it just useless to people. The funny thing is, I went to this meeting about this group that I think the city is paying to come and reimagine downtown to begin with. They're talking about converting office buildings to public spaces or to housing, which got its own set of problems in and of itself. And but the first thing that the people came in after listening to a bunch of stuff, these very smart people were there, and they're like, I live downtown. You haven't talked about the Skyway system yet. That is a critical part of living downtown. It's something that we all need, and the hours are too short. It's not safe enough. And those are the things they want to talk about, not whether you should get rid of it or not.
Right.
I don't mind having the conversation about what it's good for, but who's leading it and what's their purpose? Because this sounds like the same group that was down in Minneapolis saying we need to shut down the Skyway system to put everybody on the streets for the businesses that are on the street.
All you need is directories, because there's stairways down to local businesses. So you put up more directories and better paths with more security officers.
Right, and they do have directories in them. Most people know where they're going. It's not that hard, because the nice thing is you can look out a window and kind of know. It's most of the Skyway is going down Superior Street anyway, so it's kind of easy to know where am I, where do I have to go, and you can pop down on the street pretty easily.
But if you're most you're looking for tourist traffic, so someone from out of town, there should be directories all over the place so they can go, okay, and easily follow to the next step.
Right. Now, I will say they have been putting people in the Skyways. I don't know if you knew this, but in the morning, there's there's people there that are just there. I think they're in part just to help people out, especially during that long Skyway extension. But also I think they're there for security, to make sure that people aren't feeling unsafe, because you need to see somebody there to feel like you can go someplace and not feel like you're going to get attacked. Not that there's that much danger down there. There's some people that hang out in the Skyway, and it can get a little dicey when it gets really cold out. There are people that use it for heat, but that can be fixed by having people go out and have these security officers standing out there. So,
right. And the people that are from like Chum and other places, go out and recruit to, get these people into secure locations.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I did see this article. If you read it, there's one person that wrote a comment to it, and he's not a big fan of this closing off the Skyway. Not a big fan of Eric Borsman, apparently. When you start using nihilistic in your description of what somebody has written, they're not really on your side.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I wanted to bring up, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. Did you have anything else for local Duluth kind of stuff?
No, I was looking through they didn't post any of the agenda from last week, and the agenda for this next week is pretty weak and pretty unimportant. Nothing really exciting going on other than resolutions. So as far as the city of Duluth, there wasn't too much going on.
I think they've changed the starting time from the Duluth City Council meetings from 7 to 6 now. I think I read that.
Okay. Well, they need to save time, but I think that's why why that moron wanted to get rid of the Pledge of Allegiance. I think that's
I heard about that.
The week.
Yeah, and it was interesting to read about it, because it seemed like they were talking as if the city council might entertain this. But as far as I know, it was just some guy walking up and talking to the city council and just saying, you should do it. I don't know that they're taking it seriously or not. I hope they're not.
No, if you the one member that is not as dual citizenship, she was kind of thinking about it, but it doesn't sound like anybody else is.
Yeah, that's something else. We need to get rid of people that have dual citizenship in any government position. I don't know that she does or not. I don't know who you're talking about, but just in general, pick a side, pick your country. And if you can't, you shouldn't have any role in any government job or position, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's so bad now that you've got to start looking at the people that are the craziest. Ilhan Omar might be one that I'd pick up first. She doesn't have United States' best interest in heart, and she's in government. How did this even happen? And it goes back to the Lutheran Brotherhood, bringing in all the smallies, and she has a very small area that she gets her votes from, and that's who will vote for her. And
she admits she doesn't have loyalty to the U.S. She has loyalty to Somalia.
Right. And it's interesting to see, if you notice USAID, how much money the Lutheran organizations across several states got from that thing. And I'm so happy that has been shut down.
Right.
We have no business giving our money to other countries when we have trillions of dollars in budget deficits, not debt, just budget deficits per year. So I don't know where I didn't need to go on that tangent. Anywho,
yeah.
So I don't have much more to Duluth, and everybody, I don't know, people who know me know that I'm not in Duluth right now. I'm out of state, and I will be for a couple of weeks. So I don't really have my finger on the pulse of what's going on down there. But I'll be back pretty soon. Let's move on. Let's move on to state business, and we got a few things to go through here. A couple items first, and then we'll go through some of the bills that were introduced, because they're always fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Number one, there is a recall petition against a number of DFL candidates, including recently our beloved 2 Duluth DFL representatives who were both endorsed by the Duluth News Tribune. And the recall petition is about them missing a number of days of work, but still taking pay for that. And this had a lot of more momentum when they didn't go in. So now they struck a deal and have gone into work. But I think the point is being made that if you're elected for a job, you take the job willingly, and then you don't show up for work for almost 3 weeks or over 3 weeks, you shouldn't be getting paid, and you shouldn't have that job actually.
Right.
And we talked about it too. If you don't show up your job for some job, it's 1 day. Most jobs, it's 3 days. You're out. No questions asked.
Right. But I've seen this article came out after they went back to work. So I'm assuming that the GOP is moving forward with this recall petition.
They are. And there's a website to go to for it. It's called minnesotarecall.com. So anybody who's interested can go to that website, sign the petition, read about what's happening. And basically, it's like these legislators abandoned their duty to the people of Minnesota, and we are ensuring that taxpayers hold them accountable, said Minnesota GOP Chair Alex, I'm going to butcher this name, Plechash, Plechash.
Right.
When you refuse to show up for work, you shouldn't get paid. That's why thousands of Minnesotans are standing up and saying enough is enough. It says the recall effort continues to grow rapidly with signature collections well underway in dozens of additional districts. The Minnesota GOP and grassroots activists are on track to file recall petitions against all 66 DFL House members who failed to fulfill their constitutional duties. That's the entire list. The DFL has been reckless with taxpayer dollars, blowing through an $18 billion surplus, which we talked about at length last year with the campaign, and is now leaving Minnesota a looming deficit. What is it, $5 billion they expected?
That's what I heard.
Meanwhile, crime is rising, fraud is rampant, and our students are falling behind. The people of Minnesota deserve better leadership, and this recall effort is how we take our state back. I can't agree more.
Right.
Regardless if I'm a candidate or not, I think that this was ridiculous that they sat out for this long just because they were pouting and didn't get their way. And that they should be gone. You don't want the job, don't take the job. Don't go for the job.
Yeah, and just because you don't like the situation that you're being put in, well, that happened to the Republicans for the last 2 years.
Yep.
They didn't like but they still showed up.
They showed up and took a beating every day.
Area.
Yep.
I mean, the DFL is going around claiming that they were still working, but, they didn't do anything locally.
No, I didn't see them. But
yeah, so I don't believe that either. So
yeah, if they were doing work, it wasn't where things were being noticed.
Correct.
In other news, the Republicans have filed a new ethics complaint against Senator Mitchell. So this is the woman that went out and Nicole Mitchell, and she was able to vote on her behalf about ethics violations and whether it should be pursued or not. It's such a conflict that I can't believe that it was allowed.
And she's also being accused of using her position to get the trial moved back till after the session, which is also against the ethics committee. And the DFL wanted her gone last year, but now they're all of a sudden quiet about it.
Yeah.
But what the good part of this is that this doesn't she can't push this off until right after session. This is something they got to take care of right away. Therefore, someone might hold her accountable. I mean, that's not normal for the state of Minnesota.
Well, surely you just.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting now that isn't it funny that now that the Republicans have gotten an inch hold of any kind of influence, that all of a sudden Democrats are finally starting to take fraud seriously for the first time in at least 2 years, if not 4 years.
Correct.
Especially dancing Tim Waltz. He was the one that just doesn't care whatsoever about fraud. There's no fraud. There's no fraud. And then all of a sudden, it looked like we might even have Republican control of the House and Senate at some point. You know, it was teetering on that. And this guy started singing a different tune all of a sudden, and now kind of backed up.
Well,
so, yeah.
There's rumors that Walz is looking after Tina Smith's job, so we might lose him we might lose him as governor. So it's really hard to say.
Yeah. So the great news is Tina Smith isn't running again. I think she's been a complete disaster in her job. She was appointed because Al Franken got too feely with women and they kicked him out. And then she is just, I don't know, kind of slid in there. Who knows who she is? If she walked into a room, probably nobody would know who she was. But she's made some of the most interesting comments especially about this latest Lake and Riley Act.
Yeah.
About wanting to protect women against illegal immigrants, and she was against it. She really doesn't care about people's safety as long as if it doesn't align with her political position, she doesn't want it. So, right. But then just like the mayor of Chicago, just like the governor of New York, like, get these idiots out and replace them. And they always find somebody worse to put in their place. And I hope God, that's not the situation this time. Lieutenant governor, she's going to go for the position. So it would be quite interesting to watch her and Waltz go against each other for that position. And on the Republican side, I've got a name of somebody we might have on the show, actually, who is, I think he's going to go for that position as well. So I'd like to talk. In fact, if any of them want to come on, Tina, Timmy, you want to come on the show? We can go on the show too. We'll talk to you. No, we won't even make fun of you. At least.
One Republican who is not going for the position is Pete Stauber.
Yep,
he was on the news last night, I believe. It was last night or 2 nights ago, saying he doesn't want the position. He doesn't want Tina Smith's position.
He's not going for her position or governor, he said.
Correct, yep.
He's saying, I got elected for this job. I'm going to do this job. And it's great because Pete's been doing a really good job and we need him.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So anyway, Nicole Mitchell, nicely done. You're everything we ever came to believe a Democrat to be in the state of Minnesota. Going to move on to some of the bills that have been introduced since last show, specifically ones that have to do with the representatives in Duluth. And then I've got a few here. And then, Dave, if you have any, let's kick them in. I was able to research this last night. And just so people know, if you're watching, I'll take these bills from the Minnesota website and I'll put them in ChatGPT and I'll put them in and summarize them again. You can boil them down pretty easily and understand what these bills are for. They're not really complicated to read, but they come out a lot better in ChatGPT and you can summarize them. Always do your research, though, and read them yourselves before you believe what you're writing. Some things ChatGPT doesn't do well is if they cross words out, that will still go in the copy paste as if it wasn't crossed out. So you got to watch out what you're actually reviewing. So I'm going to start off with one that I thought was decent, HF 510. Our representative Kozlowski from the east side of Duluth was in on this. And this is HF 510, and it's Made in Minnesota program funding provided for small business growth acceleration, report required and money appropriated. So if we look at the description for this, the bill benefits small manufacturers, 250 or fewer employees in Minnesota, by providing financial support and services to improve leadership, employee retention, and overall business growth. And Enterprise Minnesota Incorporated receives funding to deliver these services. The state benefits through reports evaluating the program's financial impact and effectiveness, and the broader Minnesota economy gains from more competitive, sustainable manufacturers. So, sounds like a good thing.
On the surface, it does. Yes, I looked into this Enterprise Minnesota, and it's not a government agency; it's a private business.
It's an NGO. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're giving a private company money.
Yeah, I saw the same thing, and I agree. Thanks for pointing that out. Why is the government not doing this job? That's what they're for, is to overlook this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that they're helping it. They got a lot of experienced people on there, but you're just, to give money to a private organization doesn't seem to be the best use of funds. We'd really have to track down if they're donating to someone's campaign to get this kind of money.
It's a good question.
How are they spreading the money out?
Right.
Are they giving free services?
They're a nonprofit.
Services?
Well, they're a nonprofit from what I understand,
okay.
But they're still paying people, right? Nonprofit doesn't mean they don't take in any money. There is a pass-through cost to this, and it is worth looking into. We had to make sure that this isn't greasing hands, that we're helping us. But I'm not saying that's happening. I'm just saying it shouldn't be, and I don't understand why the government isn't capable of doing this themselves, as opposed to having to go through another organization that's not governmental, right?
Well, I mean, until Trump, Elon, the government has failed on basically everything.
Oh yeah,
and the amount of fraud in Minnesota that if these guys are actually helping small businesses get to the next level, then it's probably worthwhile. However,
right, especially mining.
Yeah.
Having support for mining and manufacturers and stuff like that. That's what we need in northern Minnesota.
Correct.
It's interesting, though. We'll talk about it here. Is that, like I said, it's provide financial support and services to improve leadership, employee retention, and overall business growth. That sounds pretty nebulous to me, actually. That sounds like the HR department's getting a lot of money. What does it mean to have improved leadership? What does that actually mean? When you look into it a little closer, that means nothing unless you have specifics to it. So it could be good. It seems to be good on the surface. I hope they're putting a good eye on it to make sure that it's being used the way it's supposed to be, and it's not being a bunch of wasteful stuff for like DEI.
Yeah, and then they're using words that you can't put on a matrix.
Yeah,
they can't put a value on leadership.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, anything could be leadership, right?
Right.
So I'm going to move on to the next one, HF 1041. This is another one by Duluth News Tribune supported and endorsed candidate and Representative Koslowski. HF 1041, the description. This is from the bill. Corporations with high principal executive officer additional tax imposed to median worker pay ratios, and companies disqualified from receiving state subsidies and grants. So what this is doing is the Minnesota legislature has decided that if a company isn't paying the people in proportion they like, they will not give them Minnesota grants, which it's completely in their power to do that. I can't say that that's not part of their job, but they're also doing an additional tax based on the ratio from the highest level executive to the median executive or medium employees, all the way to 1.5% additional tax.
Yeah.
This is not the role of the government. It's not your job to say that you're paying executives as a private company, you're paying them too high, and you're paying your medium employees too low. It's not the government's job. Correct. Stay out of private companies. You want to do this for the government? That's your prerogative. I agree that government employees should be paid reasonable, but not excessively. But it is not your job to try to figure out what private companies should be paying people and what's just and fair. It's people that have never owned a business, who don't know what it means to run a business, who are jealous or trying to pander to their voters that are doing this. This is flat out communism right here.
Yeah. This is the first step of socialism.
It's a couple steps in, actually.
Yeah.
And I noticed that Pete Johnson was not part of this, but Duluth News Tribune endorsed Representative Alicia Kozlowski is on this, of course. And if you look at the list of people that are on here, I would be surprised if any of them actually held any kind of authority in a job other than now being in part of the Minnesota legislature.
Right.
So that is just, I saw that, and I think you pointed that one out to me. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. If they were given tax breaks to them where they could take them away, if it was a 501c that was a government funded non-charity, where then they could have a say in how much the CEO makes. But this is just a regular company. They have no say in. They shouldn't have a say in anything like that.
Right. And
that, like I said, this is the first step they would be taking to become a socialist state inside the, a democratic state, a free state.
Yeah. It's just, it's unbelievable. And it's interesting too. I'll point out something about our Representative Kozlowski. Now, she has now added a couple more here in the last couple of days, but basically not a whole lot of bills on her authorship that I've seen. I don't know what she was doing while session was out when she was not, working and getting paid, but she has not been very active in the bills. Co-authoring, yes. Authoring, no. Total of, what does it say here? 6 bills as chief author. Pete Johnson has 9. I mean, he's outdoing the sitting representative. That's pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah.
Well, let's go off that communistic bill that she's helped introduce as a co-author and go to HF 1126. Description: property tax exemption established for certain property owned by an Indian tribe. So once again, as we talked about during the campaign quite a bit, her loyalty isn't to Duluth, it's to an Indian tribe. It's to Hispanics, Indian tribe, anything she identifies as binary, non-binary, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to be really showing in the how does this help Duluth kind of area. So this is just another one, right? It's tax exemption established for more property. Maybe she should run for leadership on her Indian tribe that she's a member of, assuming she's a member of one of the Indian tribes in Minnesota, as opposed to the state of Minnesota, which is, you should be looking out for us. I don't mind if you do some of these, but if you've only introduced 6 bills and you're not, this isn't one of them, what are you doing? There's some easy softball ones she did for Duluth that we talked about last week, but other than that, I don't see anything helping Duluth out.
Right. Yeah, lead water pipes. That was a no-brainer.
Yeah, wow. Woof.
I think even I think Natalie Zalazakar was not attached to that one, though.
Right, exactly. The ones I think the ones we looked at that were good were actually introduced by Republicans.
Right.
So makes sense to me. Bill HF 1006, property tax abatement for land bank property allowed. So you kind of take this one as a maybe good, maybe bad, but its purpose of this bill is to provide property tax abatements for land bank organizations that acquire it to hold vacant, blighted, or tax forfeited properties for future redevelopment. The bill aims to encourage the redevelopment of such properties by easing the tax burden on land bank organizations while ensuring accountability by requiring repayment if the property is not used as originally planned. It also extends the duration of abatements under certain conditions to help support long-term development projects, especially in areas that need revitalization. So the thought is that you're going to grab these properties and you're going to hold on to them. You're not going to pay taxes on them because you said you're going to build something that we deemed as important to the area. And if you do that, you get the abatement. I don't even know how long that abatement goes. It may go forever. It's yeah, you can look at it and say, okay, that makes sense. I mean, you're getting this land and you're going to do something with it, but why is it our responsibility to ease the tax burden on these companies or places that want to buy this land and do something with it when we don't get any tax abatement for bad times or hard times? If our house burns down, do we get a tax abatement? No. We pay the property taxes on it. So why are we doing this? Why does the state of Minnesota feel that they need to socially encourage these companies to do this by giving them tax breaks? So I can see that point of view too.
But wouldn't it be the other way around? If a company has bought a piece of property and they're paying taxes on it, that's money coming out of their pocket. Mm-hmm. So wouldn't they want to hurry up and fix the property up?
There is that too. Now you're abating the tax, so you're giving them an excuse just not to do anything with it for a while.
Right, and then that's probably one of the arguments against getting rid of all property taxes, because then you could have these big companies buying properties and just sitting on them because they don't have to do anything because it's not going to cost them anything. True. The same principle here.
Right.
If there's no incentive to get something done on that property, it's nothing's going to happen.
Right.
Force them, you force them to pay the money. Therefore, this way they'll get it done. Right.
Yeah, I agree. That reminds me too. I talked about getting rid of property taxes as one of my talking points last time when I ran. What I didn't think I made clear was that was for personal property taxes on your primary residence. So
yes.
This kind of stuff is for corporations and companies. I don't agree with it. I think they should be paying property taxes because they're using our property, the citizens of the United States and Minnesota, to do their job. They should be paying for that luxury.
Correct. Yeah, that's completely correct.
And then the last one I have written down to talk about was Bill HF 999, another one by Duluth News Tribune endorsed Representative Kozlowski. Community-based first-generation homebuyers assistance program modified and money appropriated. So this is giving up to 10% of the sales price, which is the typical down payment you have per house, to people who fit into this organization of first-generation homebuyers. And it's not a loan. It's a gift. So this is something that goes away after 5 years. There's no payment required on it. As long as you stay in that property for 5 years, you owe nothing back to the state. So this is a gift to people. So I understand, yeah, it's great to help out people that have low income and want to buy a house, but it's also not the government's job to do that. It's not the government's job to house people. Right. And you may think that's a very cynical, or you can think of that as very hard line, but when the government stops getting out of the business of trying to help everybody, we're going to have more money to help ourselves. And this is a family thing. This is a personal thing. Government shouldn't be involved with it, in my opinion.
Correct. And this goes along the same lines as Walz trying to give you $3,000 tax rebate before the election, and then after the election, the rebate was $250.
For some people.
For some people. $256 for some people. So
right.
This is just buying votes is what she's trying to do. Or what the bill is trying to do is, look, we'll give you 10% for all you first-time home buyers, so that the first generation, the kids coming out of college, we'll give you 10% to buy a house.
Yeah, which is what they require for down payment, right?
Basically, yeah. So they're basically trying to buy the youth vote through this bill, basically.
There was a few stipulations in it. Like I said, okay, I get the impetus of this. I understand what you're trying to do, and it's not a bad thing to help people. But if this is such a good idea, maybe you should get together with people privately and fund something like this and do this as a charity event as opposed to a government mandated event, because that means when it's government mandated, that means they'll take your money and do what they think is right with it, as opposed to getting public support for it by letting people donate and feeling good about themselves and donating money to where the causes they think are important. When it's through the government, it's like it or not, you're going to help pay for it.
Well, then this will also raise house prices by 10%.
Probably, yeah. It's free money coming through.
Because it's free money, so the homeowner is going to take that money from you. So that's, free money is inflation. We just went through 4 years of free money and inflation.
Right.
And
Look at it now.
Yeah. So if we look at it, this is just localized inflation instead of in the housing department versus national.
Right. Well, and the other thing is, good news, if you've already bought your house and you're going to buy a new one, you get to pay for other people to get a house, but you get nothing except an expense. Congratulations.
Right.
I bought my first house. I had to come up with the down payment by working very, very many hours in scrimping and saving. And that's how we bought our first house. I don't mean to say that everybody needs to get punished like that to do it, but, again, this is a great thing for a charity, and the government is not a charity.
Right.
However, and this is a nice segue, the government is telling you that your interior, your vehicle, if you drive it on a public road, is now considered a public place. This is the Minnesota Supreme Court. I thought they were off their rockers before, but this is so clearly a violation of the Fourth Amendment of our, right to privacy.
Right.
And the whole reasoning behind it. I mean, I don't know if you've read about this at all. They said the reason they found this is because they pulled this guy over, and then they searched his car, and they found a BB gun under his seat. And since it was found under his seat, he was charged because he did not have a permit to carry a firearm in public. This is a BB gun, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't understand what they think a firearm is, but this is a BB gun. So they found it in his car under his seat, and then they charged him. And then the Minnesota Supreme Court said that because they've defined a way that you have to carry a gun in a car, which is you have to have it in a case and stuff like that, and your ammunition separate. Because that's been defined, that means that they have this right. This is a public place. So they've taken a law that violates the Second Amendment to now use it to violate the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. Yeah. Isn't that great?
So then the outside ramifications are limitless now.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, unless you don't live on a public road.
Well, right. But even if you leave your property, well, now your phone is public. Anything you have in your pockets is public information.
Exactly.
If you went out and, we were filling your car up in the winter when it's freezing out and you left it running, and I came and grabbed your car, it wouldn't be theft because you left it on public property.
Or yeah, right, exactly. Or you just go into my car and sit down in the passenger seat. I can't kick you out. Public property.
Yeah, that's public property now.
Yeah,
and your cell phone, that's public property now. If you leave
it's a
your
public
house,
place. We gotta say it's the right thing. It's public place, not public property. But still, it's open to the public if it's a public place.
Correct. So if they want to go through your phone now, based on that, because you pay use tax in Minnesota on your cell phone, you go in a public place, now the police can, or the courts can, snoop through it without a warrant, without any other purpose other than they want to.
Oh, it's unbelievable. So this is a quote. The Supreme Court determined that because this law provides concrete examples of how a firearm can be carried inside a car, it's clear the legislature viewed the interior of the car as a public place where regulations could be applied. So I guess the legislation has to go and make this clear to the frickin' Supreme Court what the actual, amendments to the Constitution actually mean. This is a result of having a full Democratic legislature, Senate, governor, and Supreme Court. These kind of things get passed through.
but we can use Tina Smith, our representative Tina Smith, as an example of this, because when she had made the request that we add enough people to the federal Supreme Court to outrule whatever the conservative court is now. So theoretically, we could get the majority leader from the House, Lisa, whatever her last name is, and we should be able to put 8 Republican-based Supreme Court members on the Minnesota Supreme Court.
Right. Well, that's the same rules they were going for. You're right. I mean, that's what they're trying to say. That's what Biden was trying to say for the national level.
Yeah. So, if that's what Tina Smith wants, that's what we'll do. In Minnesota, we'll put 8 more on there so the Republicans have their way. Yeah. According to her, that seems to be a fair trade-off.
Right. And when I say Democrats control is this problem, I don't mean all Democrats are a problem. There's plenty that I talk to all the time. A lot of my family members, we agree on like 80, 90% of the stuff. It's the leadership that comes out that I can't understand. And I could talk to a Democrat in Duluth, and for the most part, we get, we understand each other. We come to common ground. But you start talking to these guys, and their positions are so outlandish. You're wondering if it's a joke or if they're really that bad, or is that what it takes to get elected? Is you got to be so outlandish that people want to vote for you to see what kind of the lulls is.
Right.
So yeah, good job, Supreme Court. You're doing God's work. I'll tell you that right now. All right. Anything I missed for Minnesota news?
Not that I can think of. I'm sure we'll figure something out, though.
I'll complain about something sooner or later. All right. I'm going to bring up a thing and I brought him up last week, and I still don't know how to pronounce his last name, NGO. So Andy Ngo. There was apparently a mass shooting in Milwaukee on February 12th. And I didn't actually hear about it except for listening to him. So there was a guy that was live streaming saying, you've got to stay woke. And he ranted in support of trans issues. And then he went and started shooting the place up. And I'm going to put a link to this in our comments when I post this video. Did you hear about this in the national news at all?
No, I didn't until you brought it up.
Yeah, it's crazy, huh? I mean, all of a sudden, these things just aren't talked about unless they fit a certain narrative, and then they're talked about ad nauseum. I'm going to try to find the video clip I have, but I can't remember if I actually. Oh, I think I did. Let's see. Sorry, talk amongst yourselves.
Well, it goes along the same lines as that Minnesota Border Patrol that got shot out east, and they were shot by a trans terrorist organization. Well, that's why you didn't hear about it anymore. As soon as they figured out it was a protected group, it was no longer a shooting.
Right. It was only important to the guy's family who has to live without their father coming home because some moron got a gun and started killing people.
Which is basically the same principle in this one.
Right. Here, I'm going to run this thing.
Did you hear about the woke gunman in Milwaukee?
Stay woke. Stay woke.
Like, we are not naming him yet. Near 27th in Wisconsin, Wednesday, gunshots. And a closer look appears to show the barrel of a long gun. A different camera captures a man walking down Wisconsin.
And also,
I'd love to know if they know what, when they say long gun, what do they even know what they're talking about?
No.
It's like everything's an assault rifle, right?
Yeah.
Returned gunfire, subsequently striking the suspect.
That gunman died at the scene, but not before sources tell us his gunfire hit a different officer.
Cry your tears. Wipe them later. Why does it matter if somebody's gay? Why does it matter if somebody is trans?
It's crazy.
So this guy is psycho. Well, obviously he is. You can't get behind. You can't understand what his thought process is because he's clearly not working correctly. But very racist, very. I mean, he's just gone.
How everyone on this post can judge my nephew, but doesn't have a clue to what he was going through.
And then you get your family members coming out and defending the guy. You know, he says, well, it's a bad thing, but you don't get it. You don't get what he was going through.
And no, it doesn't excuse his behavior, but he was a good person. It's amazing how a white man can shot up a whole effing place and walk away in handcuffs or with a shot to the leg or arm, but my nephew had to be killed. Yet y'all on this post making effing joke about how he didn't know how to shot a effing gun, and by the way, he could have shot and killed many if he wanted to because he did served in the army.
So what was his point? So he went there to get killed? Is that the whole idea? Is that what this lady is saying? Andy is complicated. He doesn't know what to say. Well, that was a great ending of that. We should end our videos like that, Dave. Just kind of. So yeah, I didn't hear about that in the news. Maybe I'm just got my head buried in the sand and didn't notice it, but it certainly didn't go with their narrative. So they weren't talking about disarming people again. So they usually like to do that.
Right.
Egg prices. So this has been a kind of an interesting deal now that Trump took over, and one of the big things, and I was talking about this on the campaign, is the price of eggs and how they've gone up. I think at home in Duluth, the highest I saw was $8 for a dozen, which is, that's a lot. That's a lot per egg. So you start looking into why are the egg prices going up? So why is chicken prices going up? Because they're slaughtering millions of chickens in this country because they're trying to prevent bird flu, is what they say. And they've approved this mRNA vaccine for chickens, which is just the worst idea in the freaking world.
Right.
Because once you start vaccinating them like this, you have to keep doing it, and it mutates. This is the whole problem with the mRNA vaccinations, but it keeps mutating, so you have to keep updating it and injecting these chickens with this garbage that's going to be in their bodies, and perpetually going through, and probably we're going to get it too. But the bird flu has been, decimating apparently the chicken population, and I haven't heard the bird flu affecting any other birds except for chickens for some reason. They're odd.
Well, that's basically the only ones we eat, so.
But what else? What all birds are dying en masse because of this bird flu? That's what the problem is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and they're infected, but they really haven't said what the infection, how it infects everybody else.
Right. So here's a little nugget that I found. Arrested USDA Inspector Phyllis Fong, a 22-year deep state operative, is one of the key players behind the artificial inflation of poultry and egg prices in the U.S. She ordered the culling of millions of healthy birds using the fake excuse of mutating bird flu. There was no pandemic. She personally ordered mass bird exterminations in 2024, targeting farms in many places. Set the stage, a man who did not work on a poultry farm was allegedly diagnosed with H5N1 after finding dead birds in his yard. They invented a panic story claiming 66 people are infected. Sources say the number is entirely fabricated. I'm going to say right now that I have no backing of any of this information, whether or not it's true or not. I'm just reporting what this guy had said. Let's see. Fong has already signed out the order threatening him with $4 billion in fines and prison time if he didn't comply. When Trump began cleansing the deep state in January, she refused to leave, publicly claiming Trump had no authority over federal watchdogs. She doesn't really understand how the government hierarchy works in the executive branch, does she?
Yeah.
So now she's out. But yeah, why are they killing so many birds? And I understand if it's actual flu, but it just seems so contrived. And it seems like chicken farms have been starting on fire the last few years. Egg farms have been starting on fires. There's been these mass killings. It seems like an artificial inflation of prices by killing all these birds.
I was trying to go one more level on conspiracy theory, which was I was thinking that it was, kind of like they want to get rid of all the cows because the cows are causing the climate change.
I suppose it's really hard. It's a hard argument to make about chickens, as it's easier with cows, right?
Right. But who are the first two states that declared a bird flu emergency?
Minnesota.
Well, Minnesota and California. The two.
Wait, I have something for this. Wait. What?
Yeah, exactly. So you use the government. You can't get your way, so you use the government to, off all these birds.
Right.
Then in 4 or 5 years, we're gonna somehow have a cow flu, and we're gonna have to off all of the cows.
Right. It'll be a wasting disease or something like that, right?
Correct.
I hope
the deer wasting, the chronic wasting disease for the deers. Oh, well,
Right.
that went over the cows. We need to kill all the cows.
Right.
To stop it. And that's my conspiracy theory on the whole thing is this is where they're starting. They're getting away with it.
Right.
That's why the governor declared it an emergency, because now he can do it without anybody's permission.
Yeah, I'm tired of these government emergencies by this governor. He did it with the pandemic. The mayor of Duluth at the time, Emily Larson, did her little thing. It's got to stop. You want to talk about abuse of power? That's abuse of power when you're just taking over as a dictator, right?
And that's possibly why Walls wants to go to a different job, is because this, he's been exposed now. He might be looking for another way out. So
yeah, probably. And his name is known. He can cause more damage as a senator than he could as governor, I think. So that's great.
Right.
I hope he gets kicked off and goes back to Kansas and is done with this state. We need to have less embarrassment in this state. But you know what? As we were talking about this, I forgot the biggest story of the day. Kash Patel got accepted. He's the FBI director.
Right.
Huge news. Huge. This guy is a freaking bulldog. If he does what he says he's going to do, which I hope to God he does, it's going to be great to see the corruption he's uncovering and actually applying the law equally across, colorblind, not worrying about political party and going after the people who are robbing us blind and doing the FBI's job, which is looking out for us, not to investigate us. What has the FBI done in the last 4 years? They've gone after people that were at the January 6th protests at the Capitol. They spent a lot of manpower and time going after all those people that were walking around the state capitol, not looking out for us, not looking out for fraud, not making sure that terrorists aren't doing their job. Look at the number of school shootings and shootings we've had, all known to the FBI, it seems like, after they find out. But Kash, I have a lot of hope for Kash, that bug-eyed crazy man. I love him. What he says, he's going to be great. So
yeah, and I think with the Trump and Elon proving that they're going to do what they say, I think they're going to force him to do what he says.
I certainly hope.
If he starts, meandering, they're going to say, "Hey, no, let's get this done. Let's get this done now, not yesterday. Now."
Right. And one of the things he's promised is Epstein's client list is going to get exposed. And that's going to be freaking great because I don't care who's on it. If they can prove that person indulged in some sort of prostitution with underage kids, they need to go to jail. Correct. And I hope it comes. I hope we have some, if it's true, I hope they're legally prosecuted to the law and put in jail like they should be. So that was
Absolutely.
pretty cool to hear. So I was pretty happy about that. I had something else too, and now I've forgotten what it is. God dang it. I'll remember it. Something on the national level that had to do with Trump. But I'm going to talk about the we are what $2 trillion in budget deficit this year. $2 trillion at a national level.
Okay.
Budget deficit. We're what, $39 trillion in debt.
Correct.
And this, so that's one of the things of the Department of Government Efficiency is trying to reduce that. And their goal was, I think, $1 trillion to reduce, which was still leaves us $1 trillion in the hole. But it's interesting to talk to people and try to put this conceptually. You know, when you start talking about $1 trillion, you don't really, there's no real way to really understand what's going on.
Right.
You know, it's hard to conceptualize $1 trillion. So I have a little diagram here that will show kind of the difference in time if you've got 1 trillion seconds. So it's 1 million seconds versus 1 billion seconds versus 1 trillion seconds. So 1 million seconds would be equivalent to 11 days. So think about $1 million and think about 11 days and make those things equivalent. When you start talking about $1 billion, that's 31 years. I mean, that's the difference between a million and a billion. They're talking about finding, I think, $55 billion in savings so far in money. But if you put that in terms of time, we go from 11 days to 31 years. Now you start talking about $1 trillion. And I said we were $2 trillion budget deficit, 31,688 years. So when you start talking about trillions of dollars in deficit, not debt, this is what we're accruing every year. They're taking in about $5 trillion and they're spending about $7 trillion. So this helps kind of get that through and, you know, conceptually of what you're talking about, 1 million versus 1 trillion.
Yeah. So when Minnesota is $5 billion deficit, it kind of makes a lot more sense this way.
Right. And we had an $18 billion surplus. That's a lot of money to have extra lying around. That's money they've taken in. Part of that was COVID relief. Well, people act like COVID relief is some sort of magical well that all of a sudden this money fell in the sky. That's money we've given them, or that they printed out that we didn't have.
Right.
So, you know, but they spent it like kids getting money from their, you know, no thought of saving, no thought of doing something constructive with it. Just spend it all on one-time things.
Yeah. So no one else could take credit for, you know, giving money to some sort of organization. They were out to buy the election, and that's what it boiled down to.
Right. And if you don't give them the money, well, then you're the bad guy. Well, we got it last year. You know, what do you want us to do? Cut schools? You know, what about the $61,000 or 61,000 square foot building you bought? Different money.
Yep,
not the same.
That's a completely different bucket over. You know, that's a bucket we put up behind the garage. So
that's right. It's when we're talking about Doge too. They attack Doge. I've seen many people going against Doge, saying that that's horrible. You're what you're doing, and it's almost like any time these Democratic leaders and some Republican leaders complain about something, it's actually their admission. They know they're wasting money. They know they're getting a kickback. Yeah. So what they do is they talk about it and act like it's some sort of outrage. I've never seen somebody so outraged about a guy coming in and saying, you know, I think we're wasting too much money here and we should stop. And the utter, my God, what are you doing kind of reaction to it is insane. That's from the leadership. But then the regular people who are paying in this money, you know, if you're so willing to pay in extra money, there's plenty of charities that could use it. In fact, here's a little tip. You can actually pay extra taxes if you like. So if you have some leftover cash, go ahead, you know, Put it in the government. You can use it against that
Government.
$2 trillion deficit, right? There's just because they're cutting doesn't mean you don't have to pay as much. You should pay as much as you can, I guess.
Right. I seen an analogy where they said someone was stealing your car. You caught it on your video camera, and Elon Musk shows up and looks at the video camera and says, "Yeah, I know who that guy is who stole your car." And you said, "Well, why are you looking at my video camera?"
Yeah, how dare you?
How dare you to look at and that's what's going on is he's saving us billions and billions of dollars, and everyone's mad at him, or the people that are protecting their kickbacks.
Right. Oh, and the other thing about Doge is I've actually heard senators, two things. I heard the senators talking about how he has access to all this very personal, sensitive information that the government has, and how can we allow access? Why do you have that information in the first place? And who else has access to it?
Yeah.
Okay, so Elon Musk gets access to it. He owned PayPal. You think he needs your financial information? He has it all.
Yeah, he already has it.
You've given it to him too. And the other thing is, but you have this, so you're admitting you have all the sensitive information on all of us. Do you get to see it? Who gets to see it? Right. You're just worried about Elon Musk. How many other hundreds of thousands of people actually can see the information you've pulled on us? And then I saw Chuck Schumer talking about it, and he's like, "Yeah, sure, we're I want to go after this government wasteful spending, but you can't just take an axe to it. You've got to go through and look at it, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at all this efficiency." Chuck, you've been in office for how many freaking years?
Right.
When have you ever done it? They've never done this before. So all of a sudden they've got the best plan for how to do it, but they've never actually done the plan. So when somebody's coming in and actually getting work done, people in the government especially are like, "What are you doing? You can't just get stuff done."
Right. Well,
and that's what I love about.
I seen on CBS News, they showed actual footage of Biden. They showed actual footage of Obama, and actual footage of Bill Clinton, all presidents, saying we are going to reduce the size of government. And none of them did anything about it. That was just an election. And now finally we've got Trump 47.
Right.
He says it and he's doing it. He's a month in and he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. And now people are mad. You can't be mad. Right. He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do.
Right. That's what they're mad about. They want to just hear that it's going to happen. They don't want to actually happen.
Right.
Yeah, they're much more comfortable just talking about it and then not doing anything and filling their pockets. So yeah. I'm so looking forward to actual prosecution, actual investigation, and people being held accountable for this fraud they've been doing. If they've already found $55 billion in wasteful spending, yeah. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
I think my favorite quote of the week was they were talking about Elon hired a 19-year-old to help him go through the books, and nobody wanted to have him access to the Social Security numbers and blah blah blah. Yet we just got a lecture from a Greta Thunberg, a 13-year-old, about climate change.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, and you also know what they are willing to give a 19-year-old? A rifle to go die in a war somewhere overseas.
Right.
But not good enough to look at a book, not set policy, not put in a leadership position, just doing work. I don't know. I remember when I was 19, 20 years old, I could work all night. I would eat that stuff up. This is the kind of guys you want. You don't want these 77-year-olds trying to do this work because they cap out at about an hour and a half.
Right.
I mean, geez, I'm in my mid-50s and I can't work all night anymore, right? I could, but I'd be a puddle of mud.
Right.
So it's crazy. It's just craziness.
And that was it. And that brings up a serious point of Elon's an employee. He's not doing any of this. He's presenting this to people who can do stuff.
Right.
President.
Yes. Yes.
Elon doesn't have any power other than he's got President Trump's ear.
Yep. Yes. And with good reason, because he's a business guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows that to cut through. He sleeps on the floor. All these guys are working like crazy because he wants to be done. He's put an end date on this. I think it was like in the midsummer too. Well, not very long. But they got a lot of work to do before then. One of the things that they talked about too was going and auditing Fort Knox.
Yeah.
How fun is that going to be? Or depressing is that going to be? I hope to God they're going to go to Fort Knox and it's going to be freaking filled. And it's an easy one and done, right? I walked in there. We did a visual scan. We did some estimations and calculations. We actually saw the depth. We can calculate that. Yeah, we're good to go.
Yeah. If
Why do I have a
they send
feeling
Geraldo Rivera there, then we know we've got a problem.
Oh no!
He opens the safe and nothing's there. So,
I've got Goldfinger, the James Bond movie Goldfinger. That's my idea of what it should look like in there. Hopefully,
Right.
Odd Job has been cleaned up by now, but it's it should be packed full of gold. And I know there's senators that have written and said, they've gone there and they've said, I want to audit, I want to walk around and see inside, and they're denied. I don't think there's been an audit since the early 70s.
yeah, that's what I read. So,
And I don't want to go in there and see a bunch of sticky notes that says IOU.
yeah, this is Dumb and Dumber. So,
That's as good as gold, sir.
yep.
Let's talk about a couple more things, then we'll wrap it up here. The Durham report has finally been released, so we can see it. And guess what? The Russian collusion thing was all started by Hillary Clinton's campaign. Do you remember the PP tape? The talk about that? That was started by Hillary Clinton's campaign. The FBI knew about it. They briefed Barack Obama on it. He did nothing. I don't know why. Well, I'm not going to say anything more because I don't want to find out, be found committing suicide with 3 bullet holes in the back of my head and my arms and legs cut off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty well seen that we have a 2 or 3 tier justice system when it comes to who has to pay prices and who doesn't. The whole thing about having her server in her personal area, unsecured server with confidential information, anybody else would have been prosecuted for that.
Right.
At the very least, they would have lost their security clearance and they would have lost their job. More likely, they would have been prosecuted for it because that's dereliction of duty, but nothing. She even made a joke about it in one of her campaign speeches. So, but at least the Durham report's out, and all that time they spent slow walking it out, they knew there was nothing in there. And you couldn't investigate Donald Trump more. This is the most investigated person I think that's ever been alive, and they can't find anything on him. It drives them nuts.
Right.
I'm going to talk about some of the spending cuts for Doge because we're going to come back to that just a little bit. Let me just bring this up. And this is what people are angry about. This is the stuff that people are like, why are you doing this? Let me bring this up. All right, so $10 million for Mozambique voluntary medical male circumcision. $9.7 million for UC Berkeley to develop a cohort of Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills. You think somebody was laughing when they put that together?
Yeah.
$2.3 million for strengthening independent voices in Cambodia. Again, Cambodia. Why are we paying money to Cambodia?
Right.
$32 million to the Prague Civil Society Center. Jesus. Let's see. $20 million for fiscal federalism in Nepal. What? $1.5 million for voter competence in Liberia. We could use the $1.5 million for voter competence in the United States. That would be good.
Right.
Social cohesion in Mali. $2.5 million for inclusive democracies in Southern Africa. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Don't they kick our butt in everything when it comes to education? And we're spending $47 million.
I think that's my favorite because, Minnesota was at third best schools and we dropped to 17th under Walls. Yet we're sending all of our money over to somewhere else to improve their education.
Right. And the last one, $2.2 million to develop sustainable recycling models to increase socioeconomic cohesion among marginalized communities of Kosovo, Roma, Ashkali, and Egypt. Wow. Useful and productive.
Yeah.
Thank goodness our money is going to do that. And let's see. So I'm going to get into the last section here, health and fitness. So we can end on a nice note. We're not just, talking about this stuff. I'll bring up something and then we'll talk about exercise and then you can bring up your topic. So there's rumors that using food stamps, you could be banned from buying bad food and sugary drinks. And with RFK in charge, I will most likely, I think we're going to see that. And it makes sense. Food stamps, trying to help people out to buy food, buying junk food and sugary drinks is just adding to obesity epidemic we have in this country. And it's soiling their system. I mean, you need to, why not use it for good food? Chicken, steak, salads, stuff like that. That's potatoes, eggs, things you can make food out of so that you can make that dollar last. Not pop. And pop is or soda is the biggest waste of money. It's almost like coffee. It costs them pennies to make it. And you charge incredible amounts of money for it. And it's so bad for you with that high fructose corn syrup in it for most of it. Diet pop is not much better.
No. But we're in Minnesota. We have some of the cleanest water there is. So there's no problem with drinking water out of the tap for free.
Oh, yeah.
Basically.
Unless you don't want lead poisoning in parts of Duluth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay, though.
It tastes good. Like my mom said, I've been drinking it for 82 years. I'm okay.
Yeah, if I was at 82, I'd probably start smoking too. So,
No kidding. I might live forever.
Yeah.
I might be immortal. I'll talk about. What do you wanted to bring up something?
Yeah, I found an interesting article on YouTubers, social media influencers that are the fat pride culture, and none of them made it past their mid-30s because of health problems. The article shows 4 people that having certain problems, but it's even more than that. They had a Chinese influencer. She died while she was on air because she was binge eating, and I think she was 21. But she
21.
Yeah, 21.
Did she choke or did she just have a heart attack or what?
I don't know if they said exactly. They said Pam's stomach was filled with undigested food when she died.
Oh.
So while she's 24 years old, she was doing her typical stream, was overeating at the time, and that was the end of it.
Oh my God.
So, us obviously we're not in the greatest of health, or to the level of an Olympic swimmer or something like that. However, you don't need to be. You just need to get out and move. Go to the gym.
Yeah.
Go for long walks. Get your exercise in. Eat properly, low salt. It's really
Give up
not
your
that
pop.
difficult.
Yeah, if you're going to have pop or soda, 1 a week, 2 maybe tops.
Right.
Really limited. Yeah.
And that's that's all you really need to be done.
Yeah,
You
it helps.
don't have to go crazy. You just have to get a little bit of exercise. And I was a little bit poor this week, but I was out snow blowing on Saturday, and
That's
I didn't
definitely
have any problem.
exercise. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the nice thing.
I
Right.
went out, snow blowed. I could still do stuff later in the afternoon without, being in major and not going out of the emergency room. So
That's always a plus.
yes. So
I've been since I'm in a warm climate right now. I will brag. Well, not brag, but I will say that I've been exercising every day. Either 2.8 to 3.5 mile runs since our last meeting. I think I've done that 5 days, and then heavy lifting on 2 days. So I've gotten a 7-day workout week in, which is fun.
Yep.
But so I was doing running like once a week for about 3 weeks, once or twice maybe on a treadmill. Ooh. Going back on the pavement and then going on hills and then doing it a couple days in a row. It's always great when you're running past somebody and you're like, you can do it. Like, yeah, okay. I don't know if that means I look really bad. But yeah, it's like you said, get out and run, get out and walk around your house. I know it's tough when it's cold out and it's -20, and it has been the last couple of weeks, but anything you can do, sit up, 1.
Yeah.
Start with 1.
Do laps around the house.
Yeah.
Walk from one end of the house to the other end of the house. It's
right.
Simple as that.
Yeah. But do it, and do it every day. If you're going to do something small, don't exert yourself too much. And if you're going to start working out, if you haven't been doing anything and you decided I want to lose weight and get in shape, my advice, and this is not based on any kind of education or training, but I wouldn't suggest somebody doesn't both diet and start exercising both at the same time. I think that's too much for people, and it leads to people being able to do it for 2 or 3 days maybe, and then they're really sore.
Right.
And being really sore and really hungry at the same time is a horrible combination that makes people just give up. So my advice is to do 1, let it sink for a while, do it for, I'm even talking 3 months, then start working on the other thing.
Right.
All right. Well, I think we've covered enough ground for tonight. I think we'll end today. Please like and subscribe. I know we only got a couple people that are like and subscribe so far, but I think we're going to start building. I noticed our videos are starting to get some traction and people are starting to view them. And when I say that, I know it's minuscule compared to other places, but hey, it's kind of nice. So hopefully if you're liking this, please let us know. Write some comments to us, either here or, here would be good. I will take this off live section and put it on videos in a day or 2, and that's where it'll be. And then I guess we'll be back. Anything else, Dave, before we sign off?
No, we covered a lot today.
Yeah, there was a lot to cover. There's a lot we missed. So, all right. Well, until next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Central, I'm Shawn.
And I'm Dave.
And we will see you next time. Thank you.